They defended their position, but at a cost. For several were wounded and at least 4 were dead. All was quiet for a while, but Staff Sergeant Howard knew that the enemy would mount a second assault. He quickly grabbed his radio and called for backup, but none came, as was usual. He would just have to hold out until morning. From out of the darkness, the Marines heard, "Hey, you Marines, prepare to die. We're going to kill you." Not wanting to feel defeated, one of the young Marines said, "Sarge, can we yell back?" He said, "Help yourself." And they yelled back, "Yeah, anything y'all like, come with it." Within minutes, the second assault started, and Staff Sergeant Howard took survey of what he had and discovered his grenades were gone, his ammunition was low. With that knowledge, he yelled, "Throw rocks." And as silly as that sounds, his men obeyed their commanding officer. The enemy, thinking they were grenades, ran for cover. With the enemy thus distracted, the Marines made every shot count, killing many of the enemies. The fighting became intense, hand-to-hand at times. Sergeant Howard called for the assault to run 30 feet of his position, an aerial assault, I should say. At Chulai, the Colonel Sullivan was listening, but when the radio went silent, there was nothing. He said, "Certainly they're all dead." Sergeant Howard had been shot in the back and could not move his legs, but was able to get his men to position for another enemy attack. As the sun arose, a helicopter came in to take them out, but it was shot down and the pilot was killed. A Marine company made its way to them, losing a couple men on the assault, but they finally were reached. 5 of Sergeant Howard's men died. All were wounded in some manner, but they had held their position. When it was over, he counted his remaining ammo, and he found out he had 8 rounds left. On August the 21st, 1967, Gunnery Sergeant Jimmy Howard was given the Medal of Honor by President Johnson. He made his way to the podium in tears and said the credit goes to 15 brave Marines, 2 Navy medics. At that time, he went over to President Johnson, took his hand, and led him over to his remaining squad and introduced each one of them to the President. Hey. That day, there was 1 Medal of Honor given, 4 Navy Crosses, 13 Silver Stars, and 18 Purple Hearts to some men who just threw rocks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
2 Timothy 1. I read that story, I went, wow.
Amen.
Throw rocks!
Yeah.
Can't do anything else, throw rocks!
Amen.
Yeah.
Amen.
You don't have to have the finest equipment. I don't know. I'm just going to step on a real limb here, but can't you just see a God up in heaven going, watch this?
Yeah. Amen.
So you think God was in on that? I think at one time in the 60s God was with America. I don't know how long it's been. I think there were some boys over there that probably lived because God let them live and just said, we'll chase them guys back with a bunch of stones, man. We'll be in a stone age. 2 Timothy 1 verse 12. For the which cause I also suffer these things, nevertheless I am not ashamed. For I know whom I believe in and am persuaded is able to keep that which I have committed to him against that day. Do you know it? You know what a brave soldier knows? He knows his commander will be there no matter what. I'll go back to 1 Samuel quickly here. 1 Samuel, chapter 17. Look at verse 34. David said unto Saul, thy servants kept his father's sheep. There came a lion and a bear and took a lamb out of the flock, and I went out after him and smote him and delivered him out of his mouth. And when he arose against me, I caught him by his beard and smote him and slew him. Thy servant slew both the lion and the bear, and this uncircumcised Philistine shall be as one of them, seeing he has defied the army of the living God. You know what made David a brave man? The victories of the past. Come on, brother.
Amen.
What ought to make you brave is what God's done for you before.
Yeah, amen.
He don't quit on you.
That's right.
He'll quit on you. Have you forgotten what God brought you through?
Amen.
Have you forgotten the victories of the past? Maybe you think it was you who got through the bear and the lion. Don't turn here, just listen in here. I'll find it. Don't want everybody turning. Nay, in all these things, we are more than conquerors through him that
Yeah.
loved us.
Amen.
In all these things. In all of these things. 33 years in Lupton, I can tell you who's been the conqueror. It hasn't been me. It's been the Lord. I sat back the other day and took a little survey. When I went to Lupton in 1976, I got out of Bible school, went to Lupton. I didn't even have a job. I didn't have any money. I couldn't even pay the advance rent on the house we lived in. The lady let us go by in 1 month without the advance rent. I had no people. I had nothing. Absolutely nothing. And I said, Lord, if you brought me here, then I'm going to just depend on you to do this because I don't want to be here. He said, I know. But you need to be where you don't want to be, because if you was where you wanted to be, you wouldn't do what I want you to do. So if you're where you don't want to be, I'll be where you is. And
Amen. Amen.
I took back the survey, but Bob got a building in the middle of town. Brother McGee, he's been there. You've been there. You've been up there. You've been there. A building set in the middle of town. It's all paid for.
Amen.
It was full last week.
Amen.
I get 38 acres of property, a mile and 8/10 down the road from me. All paid for. A 40 by 100 building sitting on that. It's all paid for. With a radio station in the middle of it. It's all paid for.
Yeah.
A house I'm living in, it's all paid for. I don't owe anything on the house. I didn't do that.
Glory to God.
I did not do that. He did that.
Amen.
And if things go well, Channel 6 will be going off analog up my way. Channel 6 going off analog, will be going digital on June the 12th. And on June the 12th, we will submit to the FCC for an increase of 10,000 watts in our radio station. Now, whether we'll get it, but we're going to make the increase. Say, what's that going to cost you? It ain't going to cost me anything. It's going to cost God something. It's his radio station. He's always footed his bills. He's paid for it. We've been on there 9 years now, and he's paid for it every way we're along.
Yeah. Amen.
See, I'm not being a smart aleck here, but I just know who's doing all this, and it's not me.
Amen.
Amen.
I couldn't preach my way out of a wet paper bag. But God just gets in the thing. I just let him alone. He does it.
Yes.
Amen.
Say, have you ever had any troubles? I ain't got time for that sermon, but yeah. Who hasn't? 1 Samuel, look at here, 1 Samuel 13. We're just about done here, Brother Bob. 1 Samuel 13, verse 5. And the Philistines gathered themselves together to fight with Israel. 30,000 chariots, 6,000 horsemen, and people as the sand which is upon the seashore in multitude. And they came up and pitched in Mishmash and so forth there. You know what gave David his bravery? The person backing him. I don't know how many were there in the Valley of Elah, which is over in chapter 17 with Goliath. But look at the size of that army here. Look at the size of that army here. If that was the same army that was just 4 chapters later, you know what? Those men standing over on the other side were looking over there going, whoa,
Yeah.
man, there's a lot of Philistines over there. Whoa, looks like the east side of Detroit. That's a big place over there. One little boy comes riding up. What's going on, guys? You ain't gonna run. How come you're at home taking care of the sheep? I brought you some cheese. Smile, you're on candy camera. I brought you some cheese and a word from Dad. Oh yeah, you just wanted to come and see what was going on. Well, what is going on about that time? Hey, you bunch of runts over there, you're gonna come and fight me? me or not.